Hey everyone, what is up? So we are talking about the iPhone 6s versus the iPhone SE in 2018. Now I'm actually giving both of these phones away to two random people, and all you have to do to enter is subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Links are down below, but let's just get into it. So the iPhone 6s came out in 2015 and the iPhone SE came out in 2016, but they're not really a year apart. The 6s came out in September of 2015 and the SE came out in March of 2016, and they both have a lot of specs that are the same, but really the biggest difference would be the sizes of both of them. The 6s has a 4.7-inch screen and the iPhone SE has a 4-inch screen, and the resolutions are a bit different on both as well. The resolution on the 6s is 750 by 1334 and the SE is 640 by 1136, and they both have the exact same PPI, and I do find that the iPhone SE does have a bit of a sharper screen, but I think it's because it's such a smaller screen and the 6s is so much bigger, but really that's kind of personal preference. Now one thing that the iPhone 6s does have over the iPhone SE is Force Touch, which, you know, as we go further and further down the future, I feel like there's going to be more and more ways that Force Touch is going to be used in iOS versions. So that is something you have to know. Maybe when these phones were released, it wasn't that big of a deal, but now when we're looking forward to iOS, I mean, these phones are going to be supported for at least like another 2 years. Force Touch is something that we might see Apple kind of using more than, you know, just not using it at all. Now, performance-wise, they both have the same type of chipset. They both have the Apple A9 chip. They both have the same dual-core processor clocked in at 1.84 gigahertz. And they both have 2 gigabytes of RAM, which is super interesting, super important. And I find performance on both to be pretty consistent, and both these phones are pretty powerful. I did run benchmarks though on iOS 12, and I did find that on the iPhone SE, I was getting a more higher score on iOS 12 than on the iPhone 6s, but I think on iOS 11.4 the scores were somewhat even, so it really isn't that big of a deal. I mean, I'll get over it in like 2 seconds, but I did find similar performance on both of them, so just keep that in mind. Whether you're gaming, whether you're multitasking between games, it'll be able to handle all of them just fine. Just keep in mind that I did find a little bit of an overheating on the iPhone 6s. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but you just kind of have to keep that in mind. I mean, it doesn't like overheat like crazy like the Samsung Galaxies did, like the S4 and S5 and S6, but it does heat up more than the iPhone SE, so that is something that kind of bothered me a little bit. Now looking at the cameras, they both have the same 12 megapixel camera on the back, and they both shoot very good photos, very good videos. They can shoot quad HD at 30 frames per second. They can also shoot 1080p, 120 frames per second. So that's super cool, but there is one difference, and that is actually the front camera. On the 6s is 5 megapixels, and on the iPhone SE it's 1.2 megapixels. I really don't notice the difference here that much. I mean, the iPhone 6s can shoot 1080p on the front camera where the iPhone SE cannot. So if you're planning on shooting videos or anything like that, that is something to keep in mind. But for me personally, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't really use the front camera too much. Like, I'm way too ugly to use a front camera, so there's really no point in even using it. Now, battery life is pretty interesting as well. So the iPhone 6s has a 1715 mAh battery. The iPhone 6s has a 1624 mAh battery. And between me and you, I think the iPhone SE does still have a better battery than the iPhone 6s, even though it's a little bit smaller. And the reason being is because the iPhone 6s has a bigger screen, so it really has more things to power there, where the iPhone SE is a little bit smaller, so it doesn't really have that, you know, bigger screen to power. That's really one of my biggest takeaways from it. The iPhone SE, I would say, can last a little bit longer from my usage, but you do have to keep in mind that I do think this iPhone 6s does have a little bit of a battery degradation thing going on with it. But I do think that if these phones were straight out flat and they both had the same million hours left or whatever, that it was not degraded, that I still think the iPhone SE would last a little bit longer. Especially I find that out through my usage whenever I use a phone, especially standby time too. I always found that the iPhone 6s was dying first before the iPhone SE. So if you plan on getting a used iPhone 6s or iPhone SE, definitely check and make sure that the batteries are not degraded all that much. Now the cool thing is about the iPhone SE and the 6s is that they still support all the apps that iOS 12 brings, such as the Measure app and all those cool little things. The iPhone 6 and 5s do not support those apps, so that is something to keep in mind when you're planning on getting a new phone. Do you want something that's going to be outdated, or do you want something that'll last you a couple more years? And the iPhone SE and 6s will both last you at least another 2 or 3 years. So which one should you buy in 2018? Now, I will be honest, if it was between these two phones, I would probably get the iPhone 6s. The iPhone SE definitely is not a bad phone, but for me, I'm always someone who likes a bigger phone. Plus you get Force Touch as well, so that is something cool. But the iPhone SE definitely is not like horribly below this phone at all. If the iPhone 6s was like a 10 out of 10 for me, the iPhone SE would definitely be like a 9.5 or a 9 out of 10. Really, the absence of Force Touch isn't that big of a deal. I just like the size of a bigger phone. but really the choice is yours. You can't really go wrong with getting either of these phones. If you like a bigger phone, get the 6S. If you don't like a bigger phone, get the iPhone SE. And that is pretty much where I'm going to end it off. I'll leave links in the description for a certified refurbished iPhone 6S and a certified refurbished iPhone SE. I think those are the best ways to go in terms of getting a cheaper iPhone. Leave a comment if you guys have any questions or you agree with me or disagree with me. Hit that like button, that don't mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. We are hitting goals like crazy. We're about to hit 50,000 a little bit. Of course, enter the iPhone SE and iPhone 6S giveaway like I said in the beginning of this video. All those links are down in the description. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys, and hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.